Perhaps my favorite way to connect with the history of Disneyland is to look at old publications, Disneyland annuals, or in today's case, old e-ticket magazines. This is a magazine that was gifted to me, a whole series of these, a long time ago by a fan. And they've been a treasure for me. I absolutely love looking through these, no matter how many times. And in this episode, that's just what we're going to do. We're going to take a look through, we're going to flip through this whole book, talk about what we find. We're going to experience something, some history of Disney. And I promise you, one thing that's going to happen in the process is that you are going to learn something new. That's something that happens to me every time I read one of these. I learn something new about the history of Disneyland. So let's just get right into it. The one we're looking at today was published in fall of 2003. I think they were quarterly, and it cost $8. And the subject matter is going to be Adventures Through Inner Space. But I think the most interesting thing that we're going to be looking at today in this issue is going to be Dateline Disneyland with Art Linkletter. So we're going to learn about what Art Linkletter, what his role was with the Disney company. As we look through this, you may or may not know Art, but you're going to learn something about him very soon. But we're going to start here with the main gate, which is like a preview of the episode. And I don't want to read it all for you, but what we are going to point out some of the images that we see, namely these omnimovers from Adventures Through Inner Space. Now, what these are, excuse me while I put on my reading glasses, being that Adventures Through Inner Space is one of the topics of this issue, one of the things that they're making note of is the press kit that came with, well, for the press when they launched Adventures Through Inner Space. Like any attraction, when the ride first opened in 1967, they invited the press for a preview. And I've been to a couple of those myself, so I kind of have an idea of how they do it today. And let me tell you something, what they did for the press back then was significantly better, I guess. These are miniatures, sculptures that people who were there for the opening received. At least I think that's my assumption anyway, because they're being associated with some other items on this page as well, i.e. this souvenir booklet. Apparently they held a Club 33 banquet for the opening of Adventures Through Inner Space. Let's see, it says, I don't know if you can read this, but commemorating the grand opening of Adventure Through Inner Space, presented by the Monsanto Company. And we're going to get into Monsanto a little bit, I think, later on. Quite a history they have. June 30th, 1967. And then there's a souvenir pamphlet explaining the subject matter of the new Inner Space attraction. It was available to Monsanto employees and as a handout at Disneyland. Now, not the Club 33 banquet, obviously, but the pamphlet was. Now, here's the real highlight. Right here. Miracles from Molecules. They gave out a 45. They gave out a 45 with the theme song on it from the attraction, Miracles from Molecules, written by the Sherman Brothers. And it was, I don't know if you've ever heard this song before, but it's very much like any other Sherman Brothers songs you might have heard, or you can imagine how it would sound. Think Great Big Beautiful Tomorrow, and then that sort of melody or whatever. I'll play a little bit.
Miracles from Molecules.
Golly, can you imagine being handed up, having that in your goodie bag and keeping that forever? When I went to the Galaxy's Edge thing, I think it's just different. I got what did I get? A battery charger? the Galaxy's Edge themed battery charger? And a hat. I got a baseball cap, which, I mean, I don't know. It was different. I mean, you know what? It just feels like, and I think that's kind of the point that I was thinking how different it is. It's different in the sense that they went further. They took more care. They put some thought into it, some value, some I don't know, sincerity. In this, not just for the press, but for just in general, the way that they did things back then. And these are the kinds of things that get marginalized or have been marginalized through the years at the park. And really, it's true of it's not just Disney, it's everybody, but through the years, things get marginalized like that because they're always in search of creating profit year over year, right? So every year has to be better than the year before, but that is completely unsustainable unless you are constantly trimming excess. And not just for profit, but to do better than the year before. And I don't want to get on a rant, but let's just say you did a 15% profit one year, and then the next year you do 12% profit. They don't see that as a win. They don't see that business, that is, as a win, 12%. They see that as a loss, a 3% loss year over year. So they want to beat last year. And the only way to do that, the only way to keep making more and more and more is to trim the fat. This triggered me when I'm looking at this now. It triggers me as emblematic of that mindset of constantly, these are things that they don't do anymore because they're just trying to save money here and there. And you'll find examples like that throughout the park. All right, so Art Linkletter and Dateline Disneyland, he's being featured in this article because if you've ever watched, or have you ever watched, the opening day event for Disneyland, and it was a big spectacle. But Art Linkletter was the host. Well, actually, he was one of a couple hosts, but he was like the main host. Back then, he was a TV host. A lot. I mean, dude did tons of shows. I can't even think of. They'll probably mention him here somewhere in the article. But Art Linkletter was the host, and he's got quite a story. He's got quite a story that he shares here. He had been a longtime friend of Walt's, and Walt had asked him, when the time came. They had already been, friends when the park opened, and Walt had asked him to host the show, to host the premiere. But he told Art that he couldn't afford to pay him his normal rate. And Art was a very successful MC host. Again, there's so much to know about Art Linkletter. Just do a little research. The guy was filthy rich because of all of his success. But he said he couldn't afford Art's pay. And Art said, that's fine, I'll do it for scale, but on the condition that you give me the photo concession. And this is something that if you know Art, you may not know this piece of the story. I mean, I know of him, but I didn't know this. Art was the first owner of the first photo supply company on Main Street. I'm not sure if it was in the same location as the one is today, but if you needed to buy film or a camera or something like that at the park, you bought Art Linkletter's photo or a camera and film. And he had that concession for years. And that was probably his first major, entrepreneurial success in that sense. And it was a savvy deal. They always say whenever you're given the opportunity in entertainment, if you're going to either get paid up front or take a percentage. They say every time, take the percentage. Take the percentage every time rather than the upfront fee. And this is a great example of that. So there's Art Linkletter right here. That's the Main Street train station. And you know what? We're going to see a lot of photos like this of people, guests and, the MCs or the hosts or whatever, cast members, standing in places that we can't get anywhere near. He's standing right next to the track right there. Amazing. And then here's a shot from Town Square. You can see the ABC television cameras here. There's Walt right there. Yeah, there he is. I mean, it just looks like it does today almost, but just without the trees. The trees hadn't grown in, obviously, because this place had just opened, so it was still mostly just dirt and unrealized flowers. But that's just how it looks today, especially the Main Street station. All right, so it looks like, so before Art had become or had been asked to be the MC, he had been friends with Walt. And one of the things that he brought him to the studio, and that's what they're discussing here. He had brought him to the studio to show him the filming of the big octopus scene, or squid scene or whatever, from 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, Disney's first live action film. And I think that's also when he had first told him he's planning on building a theme park. They had already had, I think, a discussion about this. It's referenced, I'm not sure if it's referenced here, but I've heard this other story. You've heard of Walt going to Tivoli Gardens, right? And that was one of the places that he drew inspiration from, because Tivoli Gardens was very well manicured. in terms of the landscaping and the lights and how clean it was. It was very well taken care of, and that impressed Walt quite a bit, as opposed to, or in contrast to, the boardwalk amusement parks in the States. And that trip to Tivoli Gardens, Art Linkletter had gone with him, and he mentions that in the story, in the interview, that he found Walt constantly taking down notes as he was there in Tivoli Gardens, and he had asked him, what are you doing? And he's like, I've got an idea. I'm thinking about doing this thing, and this is really how I want to make my park look. Yeah, and that's exactly where they're talking about right here. That's when he reminded him of that trip to Tivoli Gardens, and now he's found a piece of property in Stanford, that was found for him by the Stanford Research Company. And it looks like, according to the interview, that Art Linkletter was with him on that trip. That we've seen the film. Well, I don't know if it's the same one of him walking around in the orange grove, stepping off. I wonder if he was there for that. All right. Oh, here's the shows that he was the host of. People Are Funny, House Party, which ran for decades. It was kind of like the America's Funniest Home Videos. How that show's been on for 20 years, 30 years, or whatever. That's kind of like House Party, I think, in terms of the style. Kids Say the Darndest Things, which I think was redone later on by Bill Cosby. Wow, look at these photos. This is on Main Street. This is during opening day. And then, so it says Art Linkletter narrated the opening day parade from the balcony of his camera shop. Well, there you go. He was there on his camera shop, or on top of his camera shop. So if they're shooting from here, which I assume that's what this is a shot from Art Linkletter, from his position, then it would have been in the middle of the street rather than the end of the street as we know it today. This is a shot from Art's position, and then they're showing you a cameraman down on the street who was taking pictures, and this is at the same moment. How cool is that? How did they manage that? Look at, you can kind of put it together. You've got the girl holding the parasol, right? The woman in the black hat waving. She's got her hand up, and she's got her hand up here as well. And you've got Walt in the driver's seat, although there's no actual driver. I don't know who's driving, but in what would be the driver's seat, pointing up, presumably at Art Linkletter, and then you can see Walt doing the same here. That's like some Inception stuff right there, man. That's really neat. That is really neat. So this location right here would have been the camera shop back then, and that's Art Linkletter. But my guess, I think this is this location is the place right next to the Crystal Shop. It's where you get the really bougie clothes, not the Disney clothiers. Up the street a little bit from that, the place I hardly ever went into whenever we'd go into the stores. That was the store I hardly ever went into because, the stuff was always so expensive in there, and I just didn't feel comfortable, shopping in there. I don't like shopping for expensive stuff at all. Okay, now here, some of you may recognize this gentleman right here. Some of you may not. When we talked about, there was a couple different hosts. Walt was a host. I think Bob Cummings, which is the guy in the middle. Art Linkletter is there on the right with the striped shirt. This gentleman on the left is Ronald Reagan. He was an actor back in that day, pretty well-known actor. I mean, he was big time. And you may know him better as the President of the United States from 1980 through 1988. So the President, again, if you know your history a little bit, if you've seen the opening day, a few times, and this is new to you, but it may not, or this is not new to you, but for some of you more casual viewers, the President of the United States was one of the hosts of the opening day at Disneyland. That's a little bit of info I like to share from time to time. There he is again. That's Ronald Reagan right there. That looks like the Main Street Station. Art Linkletter again, and Bob Cummings. This is them at Frontierland. They had the opening day moved from land to land. This is something that I learned when looking at this magazine for the first time. You may or may not recognize this game. That is the game of life. It's still sold today. People still play it. I played it many times in my youth. Art Linkletter owned that game. How do you own a game? It's like, it's strange to the idea of that being a thing that he owned. Like, it's not like he was in the gaming business, right? He wasn't, Milton Bradley. You know what I mean? That was not it. He just dabbled in everything, this guy. He owned oil wells, the game of life, a camera shop, and he was a world-renowned host. Man, this guy really got around. He was very successful. Imagine owning the game of life. Look at that. Here's an interesting shot. This is Main Street. Let me see if I can get a caption. No, nothing there. Where's the caption for this photo? There is no caption for that photo, but you can see film crews in the corner there. So that's opening day, obviously, as well. Look at the film they're showing is something from Mabel Normand. I'm going to Google Mabel Normand and find out who or what that is. Let's learn something. Mabel Normand was an actress, according to Wikipedia, a silent film actress by the looks of it, born in 1892, died, oh my gosh, in 1930. Let's see. She was an American silent film actress, screenwriter, director, and producer. She was a popular star and collaborator of Max Sennett. Max Sennett he did the Keystone Cops. You may not know by name, but you've seen him. Those were some of the original comedies, the Keystone Cop series. And let's see. She had her own movie studio and production company, but she died young. My goodness. So they probably were showing some of the films that she had produced in the theater. Oh. Okay, so Disneyland's Omnibus. This is, just, I wish the e-ticket was still a thing. I really do, because these guys really, they pushed a lot of my buttons. They talk about things that are really close to my heart. They don't just talk about the rides and, the excitement, which is, my thing always. I love the Omnibus, and just seeing these images really, really make me smile. That Omnibus, that looks just like it does today. Making that right turn, coming back to Times Square to pick up some guests. Here's one stopped in front of the Main Street Cinema. And then these are photos of the Omnibus under construction. Now imagine, if you will, the chassis and the shell of this thing is potential future Omnibus. You and I have very likely sat on that very rig. That makes my head explode. That's how do I put this? That's how Disney, that's what makes them great, is that they keep their history. They keep it. I no doubt that is one of the omnibuses that we see in the parks, or would see in the parks today. No doubt. And so here's another construction photo. My guess is they probably built those in the studio, like they did a lot of things back in the day. A lot of stuff were built in the film studio, on the sound stages, etc. And I think this was a Bob Gurr creation, if I'm not mistaken. They mentioned Travel Town, one of the places that Bob Gurr went to, I guess, learn about what an omnibus is, or how it's constructed, or something to that effect. He went to go look at one in a place called Travel Town in Griffith Park, same Griffith Park where the carousel was, where Walt, conceived of sort of the idea of a theme park for families. Same place, same Griffith Park where Walt's barn is today. I think that's still there. I think Travel Town is still a thing. It's like a museum for, for vehicles or something like that. We may have to take a trip down to Travel Town one day. Okay, so there is, I don't know where that is exactly. I can't tell. There's no reference, but my guess is, well, I can't even guess where that is, to be honest. Here's one making that same right turn on Main Street, heading back to Town Square. And then there's an aerial shot. Now, why are they showing this aerial shot? Well, because it's going to show you something we talked about this in the Holiday Hill episode. The route that the Omnibus takes today, or any Main Street vehicle takes today, is much different than it was back in when the park opened, or when they first brought the vehicles on. Way over here in the far left of the frame is the hub. That's the hub right there. And then there's the entrance to the castle, right? And so you can imagine the Omnibus moving along this path right here. As a matter of fact, you can see a horse-drawn streetcar on that path right now. And then it would drop guests off in front of the castle and then make its way back to Town Square. However, at this time, the Omnibus would not. Well, it probably would if they wanted to drop guests off in front of the castle, but it would also take this path past the castle to the left of Holiday Hill. This is Holiday Hill right here. That is the future home of Matterhorn. Check out our Holiday Hill episode, if you may, to learn more about the history of how this hill evolved into the Matterhorn. But the Omnibus would keep going all the way there past the teacups, which is where the teacups used to be. But they are, no, not teacups. That's where that's where the teacups would be today. I think the teacups are here. This would have been, I don't know what that is. I see tents, but also vehicles. Now there were multiple Autopias, so that could be one of maybe the Junior Autopia or something like that. But anyway, the point is if you keep going past what would be the teacups next to Storybook Land, the entrance to Storybook Land, that right there is an Omnibus, dropping off guests to ride an Autopia vehicle or to go to Storybook Land or the canal boats of the world. Fascinating. I would have loved to have been able to take, an Omnibus ride on that path. And I don't know how it turned around. I don't see like a turnaround for the vehicle, so I'm not sure. Maybe it goes all the way to this end here and then turns around and comes back by what this would have been the circus tent. I think that's the circus that they used to have that only lasted a year or two. Here's another Autopia. Or is that, oh my God. You guys, seriously. Look at all that. It's just dirt. Wow. Okay, moving on. Oh, hey, before we go, train station. Yeah, that's pretty much the site of Small World right there. Hasn't been built yet. Fascinating. All right. 6 minutes of surrealism, Monsanto's adventure through inner space. So that's the feature of this. Now, it's not really... you're not going to learn a whole lot that you didn't already know about Adventures Through Inner Space. This basically is mostly sort of a narrative about the actual ride experience. But there's definitely some stuff that we can still observe here. The mighty microscope. You can see, and this is something we mentioned in our Adventures Through Inner Space episode that we did, how this queue is pretty much identical. They kept the queue for Star Tours. Star Tours exists where Adventures Through Inner Space used to. And if you were to get another overhead look at this queue, you would see that it's identical to the queue that you walk through for Star Tours before you go into the inner part of the queue. This was a fascinating... The queue is really the best part. The microscope thing and seeing the Omnimovers move through, which, by the way, were an innovation for this ride that became, historical Disney innovations that they wind up using at the Haunted Mansion to great effect. There again is the mighty microscope. Look at all this. Just look how well dressed everybody is. I forgot to mention this before. In 1967, people wore suits to the park, man. That's why they have Dapper Days. Because of that. They want to relive that. This was just recently. You may have, I don't know if you paid attention to our shows from the time. They recently renovated this section outside of Star Tours to look just like this. For years it didn't look like this, and then just before the shutdown, they renovated to return to this theme. And many of us took that as a symbol, as a sign of the direction that Tomorrowland was going to go. They were going to go retro with Tomorrowland, and that they were beginning, because the entrance was kind of retro, and then restoring the old exterior for Star Tours, but what was Monsanto's Adventures Through Inner Space was an absolute sign, in my opinion, of the thematic direction they were going to take the land. And so this image is a symbol of that. Moving on. Look at this right here. Hopefully you guys can make that out. That is them building the queue before they enclose the building. Is that because that looks just like the queue, right? This looks just like that. So they built all that queue before. That's not how they do it today. Today they build this and then they put everything inside. Am I crazy? Am I seeing things? Now here, this looks like it's the queue also, but there are walls. So I'm very confused. Let's see if we can learn anything. These construction photos show the queue line being erected, the giant snowflake in place. Well, okay. So, interesting. Why is this blowing my mind right now? Here's another cool image of the cube being constructed, the mighty microscope right here. Ugh. Oh my God, look at that one. Look at that. Look at all that what goes into just building a simple queue like that. Look what goes into it. Fantastic. How about this Sam McKim concept art? Sam McKim, I'm pretty sure that's his art. He's the guy who did the concept art, the original concept art, or the map of Disneyland that they submitted to ABC to get the front money to build the park. Wow. And then, okay, this is an interesting little piece of art here. It kind of shows you the whole map of the entire attraction. You know, it's funny, I didn't get into this in the video that we did on Adventures Through Inner Space because I didn't want it. It's kind of... Monsanto is... they haven't had a good track record. They made a few mistakes throughout the course of their you ever heard of DDT, or basically bug spray stuff that pesticides. They invented basically pesticides, stuff that they used to spray on plants to kill the bugs, but it wound up being toxic to people who let's say you sprayed a strawberry field with this pesticide, and it killed the bugs just fine, but it also was toxic to people who ate the strawberries in the end. Well, Monsanto was the company that had come up with most of those pesticides. So, they've kind of had a rough patch in history. But back then, that wasn't a consideration back then. People were just, yay science, yay pesticides. They were all about it. So Monsanto was a pretty big entity back then. They were also the sponsors for the House of the Future, that big plastic house that sits now where the Pixie Hollow is. And this attraction replaced the Hall of Chemistry, the Monsanto Hall of Chemistry, which existed, initially when they first built Tomorrowland. And they replaced the Hall of Chemistry because it was the Hall of Chemistry, and it was a stupid idea. Why would anybody... I imagine something being worse than Innoventions, right? That's probably what the Hall of Chemistry was. There was also... I forget the other one now. It might have been just as bad. It was... God, like the bathroom of the future. I forget. It was awful. It was pretty awful. Okay, a lot of concept art here. I think they had big plans for the ride initially, because the ride, if you've ever seen a video, it looks nothing like this. It's not nearly as colorful. Matter of fact, it's pretty dark and not a lot happening. They reduced the scale of this attraction quite a bit, and that's more story there because Monsanto, the president of Monsanto, was a scientist, and he wanted the story to be much more grand and scientific and educational, and he wanted to have it be about some complex polymer or something like that. And Disney's like, slow down there, buddy. We got everyday guests coming through here. We can't be hitting them over the head with this highfalutin science talk. And they reduced it down to just going into a molecule of water. And then even the visuals were more suggested than shown. It wasn't like in your face kind of thing. It was more about having things described to you, and then you letting your imagination kind of fill in the blanks. You would get images of the things that were happening, like vague images, and it actually kind of made it more creepy and dangerous and ominous. About there was fear and danger in the way they were telling the story, because you had been shrunk down and maybe you'll never get back to your normal size again. So this story, the story of Adventure Through Inner Space, is very much like a lot of stories that we hear for Disneyland about how things start out like this and they wind up like that. Omnimover. Oh, look at that. That's beautiful right there. This is concept art, but it shows you the Omnimover at work and twisting the seat around. Here's more like ideas that they had, I think, concept art for some of the visuals. The eye. Now, nobody, that's one of the things, if you were a kid at that time and you wrote that it was the eye that people remembered quite a bit. So we are going into a microscope, right? You get shrunk down. And at some point in the ride, somebody's looking through the microscope that you went into. That's his eye looking down the microscope, and you're looking up back at him from the other end. Fantastic image. It was brilliant image. There's the exit with a little homage to Monsanto, some of their scientific achievements. Very technical, very high IQ type queue. Ah, man, look at busy place back then in the late 60s. This is one of my favorite images from looking through the history of Adventures Through Inner Space and seeing these guys build it. There's a couple of like this, but I think that's the only one in here. But showing you the model and how close that is to the finished product. Oh man. Okay, so this concept art shows the People Mover going through the queue. There's the automobiles, there's the mighty microscope, and there's the People Mover. And you can see in this image too, the People Mover right up here. That was my absolute favorite feature of Adventures Through Inner Space. I don't have a lot of memories. Of Adventures Through Inner Space because I didn't go to Disneyland a lot as a kid. But the memories that I have, I remember the People Mover. I remember loving going through the People Mover and going through the other attractions, going through Adventures Through Inner Space, going through the gift shop, the Star Trader, going through Space Mountain. And I remember watching and seeing the People Mover from inside Adventures Through Inner Space, especially the part where they miniaturized them with the little fake models, the miniature, as if they had gone through the microscope already. One of the coolest images you'll ever see on a ride. To this day, I love it. I remember that very fondly. And if they were to tell me that you were going to rebuild Adventures Through Inner Space one day, I would agree to that, if only for that reason, so that I could see the People Mover go through, or see it, the miniature ones. Even though, like I said, the actual ride wasn't all that. It was kind of lame. People talk about wanting it back, but what they want back, in my opinion anyway, is that aspect of it. Man, oh man. Okay, here, by the way, I don't know if you picked up what I was putting down when talking about the miniaturized Omnimovers. This is the mighty microscope, and you can see inside, when you're standing in the queue, you could see the image of them wanting you to see the shrunken Omnimovers moving through the microscope. Obviously, you weren't doing that. That wasn't real, but it was a neat image that they showed you while you were in the queue. Okay, what else we got? Oh my. Wings over Disneyland. So this is just a beautiful aerial photo. Let's just try to see if we can't plot a few landmarks here. Jungle Cruise, obviously. Here's Main Street, Town Square. The hub. Look at that. Here's backstage Main Street in the backside of Tomorrowland. Look at all this emptiness right here. Future Disneyland. That's the Holiday Hills site right there. This would be eventually, that's Nemo's Lagoon. That is Nemo's Lagoon right there. And then Autopia. Wow. Well, actually, no. Autopia would be back here out of frame because they built Autopia, opening day. So this would be more about, they extended Autopia perhaps because it did grow. Fantasyland. And then there's the Chicken of the Sea, the Peter Pan, the Captain Hook ship that you could get a tuna sandwich in Fantasyland. Over here is the stagecoach, the mine train ride, and all that stuff. The old, the pack mule ride, etc. And then this grove back here is future Small World, Toontown. Right here, Galaxy's Edge. That's Galaxy's Edge right there. Or part of it anyway. If I were to hazard a guess, I'm going to say that is right about this house, let's say. That house is right about where Kylo Ren's ship is, and they do the whole show, I think. Just a, armchair layman's perspective, I'm guessing. But I believe that to be the case. This is from 1955. Is the park even open? It looks empty. The train's in. All right, and then at the end of the magazine here, it looks like we've got a profile of a Disney collector, Richard Kraft, who, Kraft was a prominent Hollywood talent agent and is a prominent Disneyana collector. What has he got in his collection? He's got a Davy Crockett canoe. Cool. Oh, a Big Thunder Ranch sign. Oh my gosh, I didn't even pick that up at first. Over the door to his house is Big Thunder Ranch. That is really cool. He's got a Dumbo. Nice. A lot of odd little collectibles. Ferdinand the Bull. Apparently he's a big fan of Ferdinand the Bull. My goodness. That's all. That's what all that is. She's wearing a cast member's outfit, I would imagine. He's got a Snow White's the mine cart vehicle. Oh my God, does he have her, an old hag? He's got a Snow White minecart, and in his living room are the Snow White and Old Witch figurines from okay, so those are figurines. That's not like the life-size ones. Well, these are the figurines, but what is that? It's a cool-looking model, probably from, I don't know what. Oh, I wonder if that's from the World's Fair. Let's see. Ride concept art. Holding artwork to the film poster 59's Gala Day. That's up here. And below, he's describing how he purchased an original model for the General Electric Progress Land Pavilion. I'm assuming, they don't say it, but I'm assuming that's part of the World's Fair. Because the poster there. Yeah, World's Fair, 19... Yeah. Wow. The same World's Fair where Lincoln was born and all that stuff. Carousel Progress. There's more. Jeez, he's got a Skyway bucket, a Astro Jet, It says he owns a rocket rod also, but it's not. They don't have a picture of it. Is that an organ from Haunted Mansion? Oh no, he's got the Swiss Family Treehouse organ. How cool! This guy, a Mr. Toad ride vehicle and a tennis court. Guy's styling. He must have been a hell of an agent. And that's it, you guys. That is the e-ticket from fall of 2003. It's a treasure. I've got 20 or 30 of these at least. I treasure them. One of my favorite things in the whole wide world. I hope you enjoyed hanging out with me and talking a little Disney, talking a little Disney history. Maybe it makes you feel good inside to remember that kind of stuff. I love Disney history. Disneyland history. I love it. And being able to capture it in those moments in time, and then kind of reflect on that and compare it to how we see things today is one of my favorite things in the world to do. And I hope you enjoyed as well. Thanks for watching, everybody. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you haven't already, and to hit the notification bell. You can follow us on Instagram at _FreshBaked and on Twitter at FreshBakedDisney. That's fresh with no E. And if you like this show and you are considering supporting our channel, please consider joining our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/freshbaked. You can get some swag. You can also have access to some exclusive videos, bonus videos that we're putting up on Patreon that don't get put up anywhere else. They don't land on Royal Dorks. They don't land on FreshBaked. Just some little bonus stuff that we do for you guys from time to time. So you can opt into that as well. Otherwise, thanks again for watching, everybody. We'll see you next time. FreshBaked.